This is Boston Lanka News, bringing you news, views, and entertainment from Boston and USA. I'm Vioni Dimel. The permanent representative of Sri Lanka to the United Nations, Ambassador Dr. Palitha Kohona, was elected chair of the 6th Committee of the United Nations on October 1st, 2013. Dr. Kohona has been permanent representative since September 2009. Prior to that appointment, Dr. Kohona served as Secretary to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and as Special Advisor to the President on the peace process and Secretary General of the Secretariat for Coordinating the Peace Process commencing in 2007 and 2006, respectively. Born in Matale, Sri Lanka, Dr. Kohona holds a doctorate from Cambridge University in the United Kingdom and has a Master of Law degree from the Australian National University and a Bachelor of Law from the University of Sri Lanka. Dr. Kohona, first of all, let me congratulate you for being elected as the chair of the 6th Committee, the top legal body of the General Assembly, for its 68th session.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you for your good wishes.
Now, this is a rare honor for you as a Sri Lankan and also for our country, Sri Lanka. If I'm not mistaken, Dr. Kohona, only 2 other Sri Lankan ambassadors had this honor to chair a UN committee. Could you please share briefly about this committee as well as the significance of Sri Lanka being given this chance to chair the committee?
First of all, you're right. There were 2 ambassadors. Sir Claude Correa chaired 2 committees in 1958 and in 1960. Since after that, Mr. Kalpage chaired a committee in 1993, and I happen to be the next Sri Lankan to chair a UN committee. The 6th Committee of the General Assembly is the legal committee. This is the committee that deals with a range of legal issues, and it was one of the first entities established by the United Nations. Its main responsibility relates to the codification of international law. And over the last 60 years, it has undertaken some major projects, including in the areas of terrorism, and now it is examining areas such as the international rule of law and international criminal accountability, and the question of universal jurisdiction. These are issues that are relevant to almost every country in the world, and issues on which there are differences of opinion. You will recall that in the 90s, 2 major conventions on terrorism were adopted, first in this committee and then later on by the United Nations General Assembly. They related to terrorist bombing, and then the second one related to terrorist financing. At the moment, the 6th Committee, or a subcommittee of the 6th Committee, is negotiating a multilateral convention a multilateral comprehensive convention on terrorism. This is a major task, and again, a task on which there is little unanimity. There are different opinions, different views, and the 6th Committee will have the challenge of reconciling these different views and ensuring that a convention results at the end of the day.
President Rajapaksa was in New York for the UN General Sessions that was concluded last month. Could you tell us some of the highlights of President's visit and any key meetings he may had with UN General Secretary or any other world leaders?
His Excellency Mahinda Rajapaksa was here for the UN General Assembly, during which he had meetings with the Secretary General and a number of other key leaders. These were very important meetings for Sri Lanka because this was an opportunity that this president got to reconnect with leaders whom he had already met before, or to meet leaders for the first time. One of the leaders whom he met was the new president of Iran, Rouhani, and this was their first meeting. Similarly, there were other meetings. We had meetings with the Prime Minister of Pakistan, and a range of other leaders. It was not only His Excellency the President, but the Foreign Minister also made use of the visit to meet a range of leaders. In my view, the meeting with the Secretary General was very successful. The Secretary General acknowledged the considerable progress that Sri Lanka has made since the end of the conflict. We also noticed that the Secretary General was very complimentary of the progress that we have made. Of course, there were questions that he raised, and the President was able to see that Sri Lanka, and it has done much in the 4 years since the end of the conflict, and will continue to do what is necessary to ensure that our people are assured of a prosperous future, that our people will be brought together, that reconciliation measures will continue, and Sri Lanka will be a place where all its citizens will have equal opportunity to realize their dreams.
During UN sessions, Sri Lanka signed an agreement with Russia not to use weapons in space. And now we know that Sri Lanka does not have a developed space program. So what is the significance of this agreement?
The importance of this agreement with Russia does not lie in the fact that Sri Lanka has weapons in space or intends to have weapons in space. The importance is in joining a global initiative to ensure that such weapons are removed from space if they exist, and they are not deployed in space if they do not exist. It is a process of creating a global public opinion against the possibility of weaponizing space. In that respect, it is very important. You have to recall that Sri Lanka doesn't have any nuclear weapons, has no intention of acquiring nuclear weapons, or is unlikely ever to possess nuclear weapons. But nevertheless, we are party to the Non-Proliferation Treaty. We are party to many other treaties of a similar nature, because it is a good thing to be part of the global processes that will ensure that the globe will remain a safe place for all its inhabitants.
According to a media report about a week ago, the Inner City Press in New York wanted to know from the UN spokesperson about a UN report on Sri Lanka and when this is going to be released. Do you know anything about this report?
The only report that I am aware of is the report being prepared by the Deputy Secretary General, which refers to the conclusions arrived at by Mr. Petri. Petri's report is known as the Petri report. Of course, the Petri report deals with the United Nations' own actions and does not refer to any country as such. It's an exercise in reviewing the UN's own actions and learning lessons from the past. It is designed to ensure that the UN deals with situations that the Petri report deals with in a much more effective manner in the future. If this is the report that you're referring to, then it is the Petri report.
In your view, Dr. Kohona, what are the major misconceptions that the international community may have about Sri Lanka, especially in the post-war Sri Lanka?
Well, when you use the word the international community, you have to be very cautious. As far as I'm concerned, the international community consists of 193 states. And the vast majority of them, at least in New York, don't seem to have a misconception about Sri Lanka. They understand that the war ended only 4 years ago and that Sri Lanka has achieved considerable progress, considerable success in 4 years. In fact, what we have achieved in 4 years, many other countries which are better resourced have not been able to achieve. You just have to look around for countries that emerge from conflict situations. And many of them, 20, 30 years later, are still struggling to come to terms with that past which was engulfed in conflict. We have done so much in the last 4 years. I don't think even developed countries which went through similar situations could compare with us. The best illustration of this is the number of, it's a group of ambassadors who visited Sri Lanka last December. These ambassadors came from New York, and every one of them took the view that what Sri Lanka has achieved is incomparable. No one else has achieved so much in such a short period following the end of a conflict. And that is the perception of a large number of ambassadors. There may be others, especially certain countries, which may take a different view for different reasons. And then, of course, we live in a world where not everybody thinks alike, not everybody has the same standards. That's understandable. And Sri Lanka shouldn't get too concerned about it, knowing very well that the majority of countries think Sri Lanka has done well. Of course, I'm not saying that we have achieved everything. There is a way to go, but we will get there. It will take time. We have to remember also that we are a third world country. We're a poor country. We don't have the same resources that many developed countries have. It is with those limitations holding us back that we have achieved what we have. So while we have achieved a considerable amount, and there is some way to go, I think the country and the government can be justly proud of what it has done so far.
Sri Lanka will become the chair of the Commonwealth next month in November. What are the benefits Sri Lanka will be gaining in having the Commonwealth Summit and becoming the chair?
Of course, Sri Lanka will be the, following the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting, Sri Lanka will become the chair of this organization. This has benefits not only to Sri Lanka, but also to the Commonwealth as a whole. Sri Lanka is a developing country, and it has a certain approach to the world, which is essentially geared in its parts. Sri Lanka will direct the energies of the Commonwealth towards more development assistance, more engagement in the evolving sustainable development goals, more facilitation of capacity building, more training, etc. For Sri Lanka, one of the key elements in its policy goals is development. And we believe that this is a common theme amongst the vast majority of the members of the Commonwealth. The vast majority are poor countries, developing countries. And for them, the priority is development. And there is no use talking about anything else as long as development lags. And we can get distracted, we can be distracted by other issues. Sri Lanka hopes that the Commonwealth will not get distracted, but ensure that development is given the necessary priority within the organization. Of course, that is not to say that core values of the Commonwealth will be ignored. Of course not. They will also be supported. But in parallel, Sri Lanka will hope to give prominence to another core value of the Commonwealth, which is to bring every member of the organization to a certain level of development. And that is very important.
Dr. Kohona, let me ask one final question about Canada boycotting the Commonwealth. A Sri Lankan government spokesperson was on record saying Canada is isolated in their decision to boycott the Colombo summit. Do you have any thoughts about Canada's decision and on its impact in Canada-Sri Lanka relations?
We have to remember that Sri Lanka has had a very fruitful and very warm historical relationship with Canada. My hope is that Canada will not forget that relationship. It's important. As other leaders have said, when countries disagree, especially when friends disagree, they should work out their differences, work hard at resolving their differences, rather than exacerbate those differences. Within the Commonwealth, Canada is an important member, and we hope that good sense will prevail and that the relationship by that there will be work done on the relationship to ensure that it continues in the way it had in the past.
That concludes our news edition. We meet you again with another news edition of News, Views and Entertainment from Boston and USA. Till then, goodbye.